I reflect after every rotation, but it's about time that I start reflecting annually. My name is Mariah, I'm a rotational physiotherapist, and here on my channel I post things physiotherapy, lifestyle and travel related, so if you're interested in that, subscribe, turn the notification bell all so you don't miss a video. I've been working as a physiotherapist for the past 2 years now, and thus far I've learned quite a few things about myself. One of the main things I would say I've learned about myself is that I'm a lot more resilient than I allow myself to believe. In the sense that being a physiotherapist, especially inpatient in an acute hospital, you see a range of things. You see, obviously you see people deteriorating, you will see death, you'll see just like hard conversations. You've got to be strong through it. Obviously you can have your moments of where it gets to you. And I've had my moments where it gets to me, but I'm pretty resilient, I would say. Many things thus far haven't affected me in the moment, to my knowledge. So that's one major thing I think I've learned about myself over these 2 years. Kind of similar to this, one thing that I've definitely learned about myself is that I'm confident challenging a decision. In the sense of, let me give you an example. Let's say I don't agree with the patient being medically fit, or I don't agree with a scan not being approved. Obviously, I will be respectful in the way I approach it, but I'm not afraid to be like, until that's done, I'm not doing this. Or, I disagree, again, not doing this. Or why do you think that versus this, and then we can come to a conclusion. So that's something that's come with time. I believe that, to be fair, at the start, when I first started on my first rotation, I was like that. I've just grown into that a bit more, I would say. I've always had that level of, actually something doesn't sit right and I'm going to speak up type of personality, and that's definitely grown a lot over these 2 years across each rotation, especially in your rotations. Like obviously I've done stroke just now, and when you're with like elderly, like vulnerable patients, every patient to an extent is vulnerable, but like, you get what I'm saying, like really advocating. Those are like good things to, because sometimes people miss things, I miss things, and I would rather someone say to me, hey, why would you do this versus that? So it's nice having the confidence to be able to do that. Another thing, like through my experiences that I've noticed about myself, is that although I do like working with people and like doing double up sessions, so like going along with an OT or going along with another physio, etc., or a tech, I also do really enjoy my solo moments and those solo achievements. I feel like I hold them in higher regard. Yeah, it's just because it's like, that was on me, you know what I mean? And I really love that. Like that's something that I've really noticed about myself, is that I am slightly more of a lone worker. I prefer that way of doing things, which kind of leads to the next thing that I've noticed about myself. Is obviously one of my rotations were respiratory, and much of my training was acute med respiratory led. When I was training to be a physiotherapist, and I can't shake respiratory. And I know like sometimes I may complain about having an on-call shift just because on that day I've either had really crappy sleep the night before and I'm just not feeling, potentially being called out in the night. But I do think that I couldn't see myself right now working in a role where I couldn't perform chest physio. I feel like I'd be doing myself a disservice. I feel like I understand why respiratory physiotherapy isn't a thing for everybody, in terms of like people don't really like it. Kind of like how I'm not the hugest fan of like MSK or like certain other areas of physio. But I do think that it's a valuable skill set to have. And it's like kind of remarkable what you can do in these positions. So for me, definitely learned that about myself, that I have my moments. I do really need to brush up on my respiratory skills and get back to where I was at one point in time with my knowledge. But I feel like I'm on the right path for that. And in terms of knowing a bit more about myself, in terms of like what I like and what I don't like, through this rotation especially, because all my other rotations were more acute, and my recent rotation has been in neurology, and it's acute neurology, like acute stroke, but it's a lot more rehabby. I think I'm more of an acute physio in the sense of less rehabby. I like my elements of rehab, but not as intense. Yeah, I figured that out about myself. I think it's an element of not as intense rehab, but also an element of I prefer a quicker pace that other specialities provide me with. And I think nothing's wrong with that. You know, it's just where I'm at currently. Things may change, but it's how I'm feeling right now. And as you could probably tell from the video, one of the things I've really learned about myself is that I'm self-aware. I've always been self-aware in the sense of it was always one of like the praises I would get in placement, coming to placement being like, okay, I've got a placement in pediatrics. I know that I, know how to do respiratory skills. I'm not that confident with like dealing with kids in terms of I can have the conversations with you, I can do your treatment, but it's just that everything else, I know that I don't like have the energy in terms of, when I say the energy, I don't mean like I can't be arsed. I mean in terms of, with kids you need like, to be very motivational to them and like constant, whereas I find when I'm like, you're doing amazing, great, yay, well, awesome, you're taking this step or you're doing this, you're coughing, great cough. For me, it feels like I'm being condescending and I don't like that. And I feel like that's an energy that you kind of like need, that kind of bubbly person when you're working in peds. So like for me, I realized, yeah, that's not being me, but that's something that I'm able to recognize in myself and come to the area or come to a rotation or just like figure out myself when it comes to supervision and going to appraisals to say, hey, these are my weaknesses, these are things that I have to work on, or these are things that I'm aware I'm not great at, but I'm at peace with where I am. So I'd say based off like my experiences and rotations, those are the main things that I've learned about myself over the past 2 years. Down in the comments below, share things that you've learned about yourself, even if you're a student, qualified physiotherapist, what have you learned about yourself in the period of your training. And I'll see you guys in another video. Bye guys.